Good afternoon. This is Dr. X Keyscore. You can follow me on Twitter at XKeyscore1. Thank you for joining me today for video 13 regarding the program. For those of you that do not know, the program is the DHS and most likely DoD funded extrajudicial political targeting protocol coordinated, at least on the street level, through regional threat fusion centers. Today I'd like to talk about this program in terms of domestic terrorism. According to the DoD, Department of Defense, the definition of terrorism is the calculated use of unlawful violence or threat of unlawful violence to inculcate fear intended to coerce or to intimidate governments or societies in the pursuit of goals that are generally political, religious, or ideological. So people, for the several million of us that are now on federal watch lists, despite having done nothing wrong, we are the victims of a state-funded domestic terrorism operation. And one of the points that I'd like to make is the utilization of human shields. So Homeland Security, DOJ, FEMA, through various types of grants and projects, are training and militarizing segments of the population. Let's also not forget that there's county level employees, law enforcement, fire, EMS, utility personnel who have been trained as terrorism liaison officers. But they're also trained in managed aggression operations, which is basically, to boil it down, the FBI has a protocol which they refer to as managed aggression. And really, they go out, swarm people, what was referred to during the last presidential election as bird dogging. They will jostle you, harass you in public locations in a clandestine fashion. And they do it in large groups of people, so there's always witnesses. Even if you're in the right in reacting through a provocation, which was illegal, even if you have room to legally respond, there's a good chance that you will still be held responsible because county level law enforcement is involved, surveillance role players are involved, they will get the store employees involved. This is a normal occurrence for those of us that are on one of these shit lists. And what gets me is, after having studied for part of my education terrorist tactics, I'm seeing, and that was abroad, I'm seeing the same thing occurring here in the United States. So what we have is state-funded actors. They could be the individuals who own these private intelligence agencies, or they can be county-level police or Homeland Security or the FBI. But what they're doing is they are approaching the poorest and most uneducated people in our country, in our society. And they're either coercing them, compensating them, or threatening them to engage in organized acts, which, as per the U.S. Department of Defense definition, constitutes terrorism. And one of the things that really gets me is that we'll have county level police working plain clothes, sometimes in uniform as well, because they park on the periphery while these operations are going on. So even if you don't see, if you're getting stalked and you are the target of the managed aggression protocol, Simply because you don't see concentric rings or layers of the operation doesn't mean that they're not there. Surveillance role players, private intelligence agency owners or people that work in their employ who will coordinate the surveillance role players. You'll have terrorism liaison officers, TLOs. And by the way, terrorism liaison officers can be off-duty cops, off-duty fire personnel. They will get paid to engage in managed aggression operations while they're off duty, and they get paid extra. And once again, this is where I'm drawing a parallel or a line to terrorism. They bring children and infants along. They will engage in aggressive activity meant to incite violence or elicit a violent response with infants in their arms or with children in tow. I will not forget a year and a half ago, I was standing in line at Trader Joe's, and a really, really tall lady carrying a child kind of moved up to me in a strange direction. I caught her in my peripheral vision. And as I turned around, what the lady was doing was spinning to pretend she was turning. Now remember, she had a child in her arms. One of the child's feet was up as she was spinning around. So what she was trying to do was hit me with her child's foot. She's getting paid by the federal government to do this. There were other people on the premises involved in this operation. Since when does harassing the citizenry and having children in tow not constitute numerous federal felonies in addition to fitting the definition of domestic terrorism? This is a political targeting operation. This constitutes domestic terrorism. This is a clear and present danger to the country. And while the general public is preoccupied with the infighting in a clandestine fashion, the government is attacking the best people in the population from behind in a very cowardly fashion. In my last video, I made a reference to respecting all law enforcement, intelligence, civil servants, all these people. We have to give them our support. However, when you have cops who present themselves as law enforcement, and yet they're running around stalking people off duty with a 3-year-old in tow or an infant in tow, it disgusts me to see these individuals engaged in managed aggression operations with a 6-month-old infant in tow. I can't even imagine bringing a beloved pet to engage in this type of activity, let alone my child. By the way, people, once again, one of the groups that Homeland Security and the Federal Bureau of Investigation likes to work with is immigrants. So yes, you will be getting stalked by immigrants, often with several children in tow. And some of them aren't even citizens. They're not even legal. And if you as an American citizen get stalked by one of these individuals, you have a problem and you call the police or county law enforcement, guess who is going to be in trouble? It's not the illegal immigrant, it's you. Because you're the target and the county's involved with your targeting. Basic point is that these people are using human shields now. They're manipulating members of society to engage in acts which constitute terrorism. And because they're in the federal government and they've decided that it suits their political agenda, that makes it legal? No, it doesn't. You people are committing terrorism. And I don't see any difference between the individuals that organize these surveillance role players and organize or suggest that they bring infants and children with them. What is the difference between the scumbags that are organizing this and the imams that are organizing this in foreign countries? There is no difference. This is terrorism. It's domestic terrorism. Utilizing children in these operations is disgusting. And I tell you what, all of this is eventually going to come to light. The public is no longer asleep. This is a huge black market, state-sponsored, racketeering and terrorist operation. This has been Dr. X People. Thank you for joining me, X Keyscore. You can find me on Twitter at XKeyscore1.